Hey there, it's John Barry 555 and welcome to my review of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 Episode 1, Grounded. So before I get into my review, a few housekeeping things. One, hopefully next week's video for review of Episode 2 will be on camera, but can't guarantee anything, but hopefully. And number two is I do plan on in the coming weeks to do retro reviews for Season 1 and Season 2 of Star Trek Lower Decks since I haven't reviewed them yet. And also catching up on the reviews of some shows I'm very much behind on. But that's all in the future, so let's jump right on into my review. And like I say, I think this was an excellent start to Season 3 for Lower Decks. Good humor and all that. But one thing I really like sticking, as I'm trying to say there, one thing I really did like is how essentially they wrapped up the overarching plot element left over from the last episode of season 2. They just finished it up in this episode. They didn't drag it out for the entire season, which I know some people I think were expecting, but I like how they just, we'll just wrap it all up. But also, this episode very much continues the theme of Lodex. So these are characters, they don't know what's going on and all that. So of course they're going to make assumptions, especially Mariner in this case, since her mother's facing a military tribunal, a court-martial in other words, and she thinks her mother's getting railroaded, not getting a fair shake. So she's essentially willing to do drastic things, and as she admits later in the episode, she's doing it because she is scared. That is actually, I think, some of the most important character development from Mariner we've seen in all of the show. This is the first time where she admits that she's scared. Sure, we've gotten good stuff before, how she often pushes she's admitted how she often pushes people away because she's afraid of getting close to them. And there was also, when she fought basically a holodeck version herself, which was very, I would say, probably cathartic for her and opened her up a little bit more. But I think this is the first time you really see her admitting to her friends that she's scared, that has her fears, that she's not all put together. Sure, it's easy to say or I think probably for her to say that, she doesn't like getting too close to people, especially people who she likes. I think she can admit that easier, but I think this is something that I don't know if she could have admitted before the events of this episode. She really, she really opens herself up to her friends. A lot of people I know kind of, had kind of saw Mariner as kind of not necessarily as a Mary Sue, but in some ways as a very not closed off character, but a character who's not likable at all. But I think that might be kind of the point. The point is something happened to her that we still don't know. I'm convinced something happened to her that deeply, deeply traumatized her, and she's slowly going through the healing process. I suspect she lost a close friend. Now, how close is it? Was it a close friend? Was it a significant other? I don't know, but it was something so close it shook her. Because we've gotten hints before that she was at one time the top of her class, that she was rising through the ranks, and then I feel like something had to have happened that basically caused her to give up. And maybe only now that is she perhaps, starting to come out of a slump, potentially. And of course, at the end of the episode, she's basically given an ultimatum: you either ship up or you will be shipping out. And of course, and she won't have her mother to protect her anymore. The first officer, Commander Ransom, is really going to be the one who determines did she ship up enough. So that's putting a lot of pressure on her, which we're going to see probably her lashing out because of that, but also trying to ship up. But she's going to be lashing out because she's frustrated in the situation. So I think it's going to be interesting character development and also very good humor. But a few other things going on. We get to see that basically the site of first contact is basically an amusement park now. There's literally churros there as a concession. There's a ride for first contact for the launch of the Phoenix, which is hilarious. And for me, it gave me, kind of impression for the I've never been to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland or Disney World. I've seen the videos of Smuggler's Run and all that, so that's what gave me some impressions of. But I know I saw one person in the comments kind of mentioned one of the Star Trek things that they did, I think in Las Vegas, I forget which. But yeah, but I do like how kind of parody all kind of amusement parks and that and commercialization of history, perhaps, or should I say pop history rather than actual history, like kind of the way they described it in the First Contact movie when they kind of alluded to that Bozeman, Montana was in Star Trek a historic site. Kind of makes you think it's something more like a national, like in the United States, a national park. Has there's gonna be a museum in the corner, or a statue, or maybe like a national, not a monument, but kind of like the national battlefields. Very, it's a reserved site, not a let's have fun site. But of course, Lower Decks would take in more that approach, which in some ways is probably the more realistic approach. Because generally historic sites, unless there's a lot of tragedy associated with them, yeah, the people will try to find a way, not necessarily to commercialize it, but to make it fun, to get people's attention and get them to come in. Now, you will get it both ways. Also, all depends on who controls it. But I do kind of like how they did that setup to kind of allude to that. Yeah, it's kind of being more commercialized, even though commerce like we have nowadays doesn't exist in the Star Trek universe. But I did like how they chose the more comical version of historical site interpretation rather than the more historical. So they went pop history and commercialization theme park rather than national monument, national park, historic site type. But I did like how they did have that. That they use that for their humor. I think I've said that a couple times already. And of course, there's a few other things. Very much looks like Tendi and Rutherford are going on a date. They're at Cisco's and all that, and talking about going to other places on Earth. So it does look like we might see them actually be dating in the show, which could be quite interesting. To see how that develops, because we already know they both care about each other, but we still haven't seen them acknowledge it to each other. Nor have we really seen, any humor about it yet. Really, some humor about their feelings and not having expressed it, but if they express it to each other, I can imagine Odex creating some quite humorous situations for that, and I kind of want to see that. And that goes something very important to remember about any kind of a comedy show. You guys think, how are they going to make humor out of this? Because Odex, as you can see, as I talked about earlier, also knows when to take things seriously, which I really do like. There's, of course, other things I could talk about in this episode, but I think this is where I'm going to end it for now. I do hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. What did you think of the review? And of course, what did you think of this episode? I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. So thank you for watching. If you haven't done so already, feel free to like, upvote, share, subscribe, follow, heart. You know the drill. Check out the links down below. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. Live long and prosper.